And, you know, after talking through some of those initial assumptions about who I was and what I was there to do, we kind of then immediately get down to the brass tacks of it. And it's crazy. At the end of the day, all these guys wanted was a decent income to be able to stay in their community and feel a sense of pride in what they do.
Yeah.
Those are things we can agree on. That is the broadest base unifying thing that brings together people in my country, people in your country, regular people across the world. Yeah. It's the foundations of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is where we will find our solidarity. That is the stuff that we can agree on. So I think that, you know, when it comes to kind of trying to reach across the aisle and talk to these people who are in these incredibly angry spaces and are being co-opted and manipulated by the far right, obviously that's not a role for particularly those who are subjected to all of that hatred. But I do think those of us who have a familial or family connection, if we can just kind of spend the time and ask people why they think the way that they do and how they kind of came to those conclusions, you know, people will come to unpack. And when they are talking about why they think the way that they do, they will start to acknowledge themselves, if they're genuinely being listened to, that maybe there are some gaps in their logic.
Yeah, I think often there's less between some of the people who are supporting what we do, who want a wealth tax, and some of the people going on these marches than you might think. And I've seen some guy, there's a YouTuber here called Jimmy the Giant that I like. Oh, and I think it was he tweeted it, but I think it was on Politics Joe. They went and they spoke to some of these guys at the marches. A lot of these guys want wealth taxes. And I think the situation we have here is, you know, everybody hates the Conservatives. It's understandable. People are starting to hate Labour become and that's understandable as well. And then Reform, our sort of new right, far right party, they kind of win by being the only voice left in the room, because the left hasn't really been able to establish a presence in social media, which is where these people are, or in the mainstream media. And I actually think there's a massive space for a fourth voice here, which it doesn't have to be on the left, that really just anything that centres living standards, economics, inequality, taxation, which is what I'm trying to be. It sounds like you're trying to do a similar thing here.
So that's where we're going to leave that. I think there's lots in here that we can talk about. And I mean, Ash, one of the reasons we've got you here, and we've had Brie Elliott here, and we've got some others coming up this week as well, is the left is bad at social media. The left, when I say the left, I'm talking about the institutionalized left, Labour. The government, those that are going to sit in the seats, are bad at it. As much as we mock the Prime Minister for it, his seven social media staff obviously are doing something that's helping, as cringy as we all think it is, it's doing something that's helping it. So, yep, the left are bad at social media and they're bad at independent media, and I think that's the world over. One of the reasons you saw Trump get elected was he played the social media game better. He went on the podcast, he was available to the right people, and they got a win. How about I've got another thing from that last comment, but how about that to start off with? Because you're in that world, right? TikTok and Facebook, you're in that social media world. What do you think about the idea about the left needs to be better in that space?
Yeah, I do. I think that the left needs to be more present, definitely. And I think the left from all different fields need to as well. You know, like I'm obviously got the hair color that the right likes to consider the left to be, right? Like anyone with bright colored hair or anyone who's a hippie, oh my God, that's the left and that's scary and they mustn't be intelligent and they mustn't know what they're talking about and they mustn't be mature. But you know, if we had more of a presence from the left that are having these, you know, important discussions about economics and about what can move forward, and then that I think that respect could be and should be earned for the left in that regard. I think a lot of what would you call it, blue collar workers, just your everyday person, when they listen to debates, they're looking for a government that they can feel proud to say it's theirs, or a politician to say, like, just considering everyday workers, they don't really want someone radical. And this is where, I'm going off track a little bit, but that's where I tend to ramble, so I've been trying not to. But yeah, that's sort of that's my perspective on that without going too far. But yeah.
She talked about solidarity and need. And I think that's so true. And I have done this experiment before. Maybe we'll do it again next year. There is a tribal element, obviously, to politics. and your side has the best policies because they're your side. Your side is the best to run the country because they're your side. And I've done this once, maybe twice before, where I've got a bunch of policies from a bunch of parties and then strip all the branding off them, put them in front of people who don't know where the one is. And the number of times people end up who are like, you know, in New Zealand national voters or conservative voters ending up picking out all the left policies is unbelievable. So I would also say there's kind of solidarity in policy. That you heard what Gary was saying there on that Unite the UK march, which was a far right march. Yeah. They were speaking to people who wanted a wealth tax. There's solidarity in policy. You know, we can want the same things, and if we can figure out how to, what's that saying? You drop the scales from your eyes. If we can start figuring out how to maybe remove the scales, remove the tribal nature of I'm on this side of politics because. And start looking at solidarity in need and solidarity in policy, which is sort of my version of that. I'll tell you what, you're not going to get many travelling from the left to the right because there's not much within policy that attracts. Well, because the right don't do policy; they respond to policy. But but the other way, it's not uncommon. Sorry, I interrupted you, Ash. What are you going to say?
No, you're right. I was just going to say it's the same thing being on social media. Also, you have the interaction from, you know, right-leaning or right-wing commenters. And then you can sort of have that interaction and the backwards and forwards and actually, you know, find that middle ground where we're not so different when we find it in the middle. And like as Chloe was saying, if you find people, if they're able to express themselves and have someone banter with them and have that conversation, not laughing at them or making them feel belittled in any way, shape, or form, and opening up that space, they can come to that realization in their own, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is no real left or right to the situation. It's just about what's good for the country moving forward. And I think, yeah, again, that comes back to the social media presence. But yeah, definitely.
And what I want more than anything is honest conversations. So a really good example, and I don't really debate on Twitter. I mean, occasionally if I'm a bit bored, I might jump on there for a half hour. But, you know, at the very least, you want to start from a position of honesty. So, for example, the classic one still going on is about this Labor government ruined the economy and through COVID. And I'm like, well, let's at least start with an honest conversation, which is, yes, we borrowed more, but the payoff for that was 20,000 saved lives. Can we start there? Because then what we got to do is say, is the borrowing more worth the 20,000 lives, or should we have borrowed less and had 20,000 more funerals? So let's at least start from a point of honesty. We can disagree still, but let's have that starting position be honest.